I'm going to talk about how we can all get more out of networking. The really brilliant news, it's got very little to do with what you do at the meeting. It's perfectly okay to be nervous. I get nervous about standing up and doing the 40 seconds still. I've done over 1,000 networking events, over 750 of those at For Networking. When John says I'm one of the biggest speakers in networking, that's probably from all of the vegetarian cooked breakfast that I've had along the way. I didn't get this big by accident. Yeah, 5 years, same joke. That's the best laugh I've ever had for that one as well. But I'm going to, all of this stuff, speaking at the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, I spoke at the Unitron conference last Saturday. They're an American manufacturer of hearing aids. They got to find out about me from networking and from LinkedIn particularly. Speaking at all of these places and getting all of this stuff, being asked to write these books, all of that happened as a direct result of networking. I don't think most people give it enough effort. I'm going to talk about that a little bit this morning. And I don't think enough people give it enough time as well. An awful lot of the success that you're about to have is just round the corner. You can't just see it at the moment. But also, there are steps that we can take. There is stuff that we can do to make ourselves much more successful in networking much more quickly. So I'm going to talk about two things only. I'm going to talk about what we do at the meeting, because that's what people ask me about. When people approach me, they want to know how they can deliver a better 40 or 60 seconds, what they can do. And I'm also going to talk about what we do after the meeting. Because what most people don't do after a meeting, that's where most of the opportunity dies, frankly. That's where most people go wrong. And I'm going to talk about that at some length, and hopefully you'll get a couple of takeaways from this that you can really use. Is that all right? But why do I come? Why do I come to networking events when, as about half of you know in the room already, or if you've looked at Facebook this morning, I've been up since 2:30 this morning. They told me I wouldn't get any sympathy here. They said they're a tough lot. Been up since 2:30 this morning. I dropped my son off at Luton Airport at 5:30 this morning. That was how I ended up being in this part of the country, because I live in Oxfordshire. And yet, I decided to come along to a networking meeting, and I booked myself into this actually without telling David or anyone. I was just going to sneak in, but he spotted it. But I booked myself into this meeting because all of these big opportunities that I've had, every big opportunity has started with a little conversation somewhere. Every big opportunity has started with some sort of conversation. The reason that I carry on going to networking meetings is because I still find big opportunities hidden there. The reason that I put in this effort to drive around the country and make sure that I'm at networking meetings a couple of mornings a week is because this stuff just works if you apply yourself to it. I could easily have gone home this morning. I'd have been home by about 8:30 and got on with my day and had a nap and that sort of thing. 46 years old, I can't deal with 2:30 a.m. starts anymore. But I chose to come here because this is where I find all of my opportunities. So what we do at the meeting, I think, is really, really crucial. How we project ourselves at the meeting, how we deal with stuff at the meeting, I think is really terribly important. How many of you get nervous about doing your 40 seconds? Right, that's cool. Okay. Couple of things to say about that firstly. As some of you know, I was an estate agent for about 18 years. That's what I did before this part of my journey started in 2007. And as an estate agent, we advertised in the Oxford Times, our local paper, every single week. I live just outside a town called Witney in Oxfordshire. That's where this accent comes from. It's the constituency of one David Cameron MP. Oh, I got booed in Newcastle. Got booed quite a lot when I was up there. So, you know, it's David Cameron's constituency, so our bins get emptied every week and all of our libraries are open. Bit too close to the truth. But I was an estate agent for 18 years. We advertised in the Oxford Times every single week. Never once did I wait for the day before and the guy phoning and say, oh, well, tomorrow, I haven't had much time to do that. Let's just say that this week, that'll have to work. This was our opportunity to talk to our constituents. This was our opportunity to talk to the people who might use our business. I started in estate agency in 1988, so most of my career was pre-internet, all of my career was pre-social media. Our Oxford Times advert was critically important to us. We never just winged it. I think that going to a networking event and having the opportunity to speak to 20 odd people is equally important, and it really intrigues me when I see people think about what they're going to say as they stand up. I really, really recommend that you prepare something. I'm going to talk in a second about what you should prepare, but it really helps to be prepared. It will make you feel much more confident. It will make you feel much better about it. It's perfectly okay to have stuff written down. A couple of you have this morning, and that's absolutely fine. It's much better than just winging it. If you're going to write stuff down, think about this for a second. Most of you carry a device that looks a little bit like that. All of these devices have got a voice recorder on them, or memo recorder, or sound recorder. When we write stuff down, we tend to do a number of things. We tend to hugely overestimate or underestimate how long it's going to take to read it out. Anyone ever seen a 4-minute 40 seconds? I've seen plenty. Anyone ever seen a 2-minute best man speech at a wedding? I've seen that as well. We'll overestimate or underestimate how long it takes us to read stuff. The other thing that we do when we write stuff down, we tend to use language which is different to how we speak. We tend to use slightly more formal language when we write stuff down, so that if we just read something verbatim, which we've written down, we'll tend to trip over some words. When you guys get finished here today, none of you will turn to the person next to you and say, "With kind regards." But you're all going to write that at the end of an email to them this afternoon. You tend to write slightly more formally than you speak. The other thing about recording it is that it helps you remember it. My presentation for the Chartered Institute this weekend has been recorded, and I've played it back to myself a few times, so I've got to do 45 minutes. So it helps me to remember it. It helps to fix it up here. So as well as writing stuff down, if you think you're going to be at all nervous, think about recording it and listening to it back as well. What it does for me is that it helps me remember my narrative, my story, where I'm going with stuff. That's what it does when I record it. But think hard about what you're going to say. Our advert in the Oxford Times was never intended to tell people about every house that we had for sale. It was never intended to tell people about all of our services. The point of our ad in the Oxford Times was to give people enough that they wanted to find out more, to give people enough that they would pick up the phone or walk into our office. It was pre-internet. People weren't going to come and look at our website. We wanted people to actually talk to us. So we crafted our ad so that it would pique people's interest and entice them to want to find out more. That's what I suggest you should be doing with your 40 seconds. What people often try and do is cram loads of stuff in there. And what that means is that someone can say, tick, it's all right, I know what he does, I don't need to talk to him now. I know what he does, I can store that up for later. When you've got, and we're really lucky in 4 Networking that we've got this meeting structure, when you have the one-to-ones in the meeting, think about structuring your 40 seconds so that it encourages people to ask you for a one-to-one. I've got 5 one-to-ones booked today. That's quite normal for me, but I do structure my 40 seconds so that people will ask me for a one-to-one because they'll want to find out more. And let's be unashamed about this, because I'm really unashamed about it. The point of coming to networking meetings for most people, at least when they start, is that ultimately you want to sell some stuff. That's why we all start going to networking meetings. The point of my 40 seconds is a little advert that gets people interested in what I'm doing so that they want to come and talk to me and find out more. For those of you who've asked me for a one-to-one, sorry that I've just given away the crown jewels and told you that I was reeling you in, but that's what I do and that's what we all do at networking events. Think about what the other people in the room are buying, which is really, really important. What I actually sell is training and mentoring services. That's the basis of what I sell, but I work on the basis that what people want is something slightly different to that. So my introduction is based around a problem which I'm guessing some of the people in the room will have, that they would like to be able to sell more stuff at networking. It's a pretty good assumption that I can make. All of you solve a problem in some way or other. So think about what the people in the room are buying. Think about the outcomes of working with you. Think about piquing their interest with giving them an impression of what they'll actually get, what outcomes they'll get from working with you. How many of you came here this morning for the sake of your own business? It's not a trick question. Yeah, I did. Yeah. It's the most ambiguous question in the world, but it's not a trick question, I promise. People go to networking meetings for the sake of their own business. They go there because they want to sell more stuff. Ultimately, that's why we get up in the morning and travel to events like this. I approach every networking event every 40 seconds with that in mind. Rather than fighting against that, if everyone else in the room, there's 20 odd of you, if you're all here for the sake of your business, not mine, why would I stand up and start to talk about my business? Because I'm the only person here interested in that. So I put together my 40 seconds, and I really suggest you do, thinking about what the people in the room are buying, accepting that everyone else is here for the sake of their business. People aren't interested in what you do. It's a bummer, really, but it's the truth. They're interested in what it might do for them. Because everyone's interested in their own stuff first, and that's just us as human nature. It doesn't mean that other people are selfish. When you're dealing with your 40 seconds, when you're presenting your 40 seconds, what a number of people in the room are doing, of course, is thinking about their own 40 seconds. Because they're starting to worry that there's only 6, 5, 4, and it's going to be them. So think about putting your stuff together in such a way that it piques people's attention, and that then you show them what value you can give them if they ask you for a one-to-one. The other thing that we do in all of our other marketing, and it really intrigues me that we don't think about it so much in our 40 or 60 seconds, in any other marketing that you put together, your leaflets, your banners, your websites, you're bound to have some sort of call to action on there. Visit our website, pick up the phone, whatever it happens to be. I put a really strong call to action in my 40 seconds. If you want to find out more, you just need to ask me for a one-to-one. I help people understand what they need to do next if they want to take the next step towards potentially doing business with me. Think about helping people understand what they need to do. Whether it's pick stuff up from the bump table, ask you for a one-to-one, visit your website, whatever it happens to be, help people understand that. But what most of us do at networking meetings, we tend to get terribly right. What really intrigues me is what most people don't do after networking meetings. I'll explain something that will happen to you later. When you leave this meeting around 10 o'clock or 10:30 this morning, you will have an email that you've got to deal with, or a couple of missed calls from someone, or you're now running slightly late for your next appointment, or you've got a text from your 16-year-old son's school saying that he hasn't turned up for his history GCSE. A bit too close to home. Yesterday, it was yesterday, yes, I know. My son did it as well, and he actually did turn up this time. But you'll have all of this stuff that happens in your life that starts to creep in. So you've had a brilliant one-to-one this morning, or you've listened to a great 40 seconds, but all of a sudden, you've got an email from a client that you've got to deal with. All of a sudden, you've got a telephone call that you've got to deal with. All of a sudden, all of this other stuff creeps in, and those conversations that you had this morning start to slip down. Everyone else in the world is as busy as you. Everyone else has got the same challenges, the same commitments, the same draws on their life that you have, and it's your job to remind people that you exist. It's not their job to remember. That their own stuff will creep in. Even if they had a great one-to-one with you, in the politest possible way, it's likely that they'll start to forget about you because their own stuff gets in the way. It's your job to remind people that you exist. If people have expressed interest in what you're doing, it's absolutely your role to actively follow up with them. But it's also your role to follow up with all of those other people that you meet who might not immediately be interested in what you're selling. I might have had a one-to-one with you this morning and I thought it was fantastic. I just don't need your services now. And I might see you in a couple of weeks' time, and I simply don't need your services today. And I see you in a month's time, and I just don't need your services then. And in 3 months' time, I'm thinking, God, who was that person who did that thing? I've lost their business cards. But it's okay, he does something similar, so I'll go and talk to him. I'm on pretty safe ground in this part of the country, but do you have DFS, the furniture store, advertising around here? Yeah, so when does their sale end?
Never.
Is it never? When have we got next bank holiday? August? But you've all heard of DFS. You all know that they sell sofas. You all know that they do interest-free credit, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So why, when you get home tonight, if you put on ITV, bless you, why when you get home, when you put on ITV, will DFS be advertising to you tonight stuff that you already know about them? The one thing that DFS don't know about you is when you're going to start thinking about buying a sofa, because the rest of the time it's just white noise. You're not really paying attention. One day on a Sunday you're going to get home and the dog's done that thing again, or the sofa's just too dirty, we've got to get a new one, or we've got family coming, and you'll start to think about buying a sofa. And what DFS do is just make sure that they're absolutely constantly there, so that at the point at which you start thinking about buying a sofa, they are somewhere in your space. You've got this huge opportunity with all of these people that you've met, and in 2016 there really is no excuse for not keeping in touch with people. You have Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and email and the telephone. In 2016, it is still absolutely legal to pick up the phone and actually talk to people. Hey, laugh at it, but how many of us hide behind emails and just hide behind social media? I'm a huge user of social media. I've just set up a Facebook group. We've got 260 members. We started less than 2 days ago. I deal with social media in volume, but I back that up by meeting people and picking up the phone and actually talking to people. Nothing beats that at all, I absolutely promise. There's a guy who I admire immensely called Martin Warrilow, 4Networking member up in the Midlands. And he once posted on Facebook that he won't do online shopping, online grocery shopping. And I asked him why, and his expression, which I've used a lot, it's in the book, was that you can't squeeze an onion online. I think that applies to human relationships. I think you have to press the flesh. You have to get out and kiss babies. You have to actually meet people. Well, politicians will be doing it when David Cameron loses the vote next week. But politicians will be out doing that in the run-up to the next election. You have to go out and meet people. Nothing beats it. Even doing the really clever things that people like Frank and John do with online marketing, actually meeting people, particularly if we're business to business, particularly if our business revolves around having relationships with people, that's really terribly important to us. And being there to do it and meet the people speeds up that process which 4Networking describe as meet, like, know, trust. Getting towards the trust is where we're all looking to get to. That's the point at which people might buy from us or refer business to us. So speeding up that meet, like, know, trust process is where we're all going. Get yourself out there and connecting with all the people that you meet on social media. And remember what we talked about a few minutes ago. Everyone thinks about their own stuff first. This really interests me a lot. When you go back to your offices later on, if you put LinkedIn up on your laptop, up in the top right-hand corner of LinkedIn, and it's even on the app now, it will tell you all of this stuff that's of interest to the other person. Someone's been in business for 5 years, someone's just published an article, someone's done this or done that. What most of us do is ignore all of that and just broadcast our own stuff, just put an advert or our own stuff out there. I promise you, if you show genuine interest in other people, they will reciprocate by being interested in you. Dale Carnegie wrote in the best book on social media that was ever written in 1937, Dale Carnegie, in How to Win Friends and Influence People, wrote that you will win more friends in 2 months by being interested than you will win in 2 years by trying to be interesting. Go out and show genuine interest in other people. A load of them will reciprocate by being interested in you. If you spot someone regularly liking your stuff, commenting your stuff, sharing your stuff, all of us naturally will feel an obligation to go back and look at them. Then you've got to put in the work of giving them something to look at, which is where a number of you come in the room by helping people to do that, but people will come back and look at what you do. Just checking on the clock. Finally, never underestimate the other people in the room. This is a story I've been using, and a true story, since probably 2010, but I met someone called Kathy at 4Networking in Tewkesbury, and I met her in 2009 at a 4Networking event, and we had a one-to-one, and I ended up doing some writing and marketing for her business. Kathy was a self-employed HR consultant based in Abergavenny, and she was paying me £200 a month, and that was a really good deal for me, and her business was growing. And after about 6 months, I got a call from Kathy out of the blue to say she was really sorry she was winding up the business and wouldn't need my services anymore. And I had a chat with her and found out what was going on, and it turned out she'd been headhunted. Because prior to being a self-employed HR consultant, she'd been HR director for Next. Prior to that, she'd been operations director for Hamleys, and a series of life changes had left her being self-employed, but now she'd been headhunted back into her first love, which was retail HR. And she became HR director for a rather large firm of shoe shops. And I'd lost a client. So I was really thrilled for her, because she had a 6-figure salary and a Mercedes and all of that, but I'd lost a client, but we kept in touch. And after about 6 months, Kathy picked up the phone to me again and explained that she had a problem. This was on the Thursday. They were opening a new store in Cardiff on the Tuesday, and she needed someone who could stand up and present to their team. The company that was meant to be doing it had let them down at the last minute. She knew that it was out of my comfort zone. This was 2010. I wasn't as used to speaking in front of groups of people. She knew that I could do it. She explained that it was £1,000 for the day plus expenses. Took me about that long. To stand up and speak for 45 minutes. So I turned up and did the gig. A few of the directors of the company were there, and for the next 18 months or so, I got 3 or 4 days' work a month out of that same company. I got really excited and announced this all over the place that I'd won this business. 9 people got in touch with me to say, can you introduce me to whoever buys this, who's responsible for that, who does that? 5 of them I knew in real life, 4 of them I'd never met, and they emailed me out of the blue to say, introduce me to your best client. How was that going to work out? Cafe was looking after 5,600 employees at that point. Out of the 5 people I did know in real life, 1 of them I didn't need to introduce to Cafe, because at the very same meeting in Abergavenny, he had said, no thanks, I don't need a one-to-one with you. I deal with companies with 10 or more employees. You're simply self-employed. Never underestimate the other people in the room. You never know who they used to be, who they might be connected to now, or who they might go on to become in the future. The thing that I fell in love with about this environment mostly is that there's always that truism in sales that you only get one chance to make a first impression. What I fell in love with about networking was that this was the only place where I got a second chance, or even these days, a 1,000th chance to make an impression. Thank you very much for listening.